What's up, Hardly Typical Podcast family? This is your favorite duo, Dr. Teresa Lee, Dr. Lamar Hardwick. We are back, season 4. Dr. Lee, how are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm feeling good. How about you?
Hey, I'm okay. I was about to lie and say I feel good. I'm okay. I'm here. I'm standing on the prayers of the people. So,
hey,
we're doing good. How is the Lead 3 adjusting to the new school routine? You guys back in the routine?
We are adjusting. We're not back quite right,
Okay.
but we're getting there. We're getting
All
there.
right.
This is the 4th week of school, so give us a little time.
Okay. All right. Yeah, same here. Our kids are a little older, as you know, but we're still adjusting to, we got our 16-year-old, and he was under the impression at the beginning of the year that he was going to drive every day. It just so happens that he's been able to do that because my wife has been working from home. And so, I don't really go anywhere. So he has the car and he's living his best life. But I hate to tell him, once mom goes back to work, bro, you can't take the car because I might need it. So that's going to be
don't crush him yet.
That's going to be an adjustment for him. So, yeah.
Yeah. Don't crush him yet. Give him a little time.
Not yet. Okay. All right. I'll tell him you said give him a couple more weeks. Because he living his best life. He bought his own parking pass and everything. Like,
oh man.
Like, bro, this ain't a permanent situation.
Listen, that's a big deal. At 16, that's a big deal.
It is. But, so we're adjusting too. So I'll let you know how that conversation goes. I'm sure It's not going to be, he's not going to like that. Hey, it is what it is, right? So we got a special guest today. Who do we have with us today, Dr. Lee?
We do. So we have a special guest with us today. Hardly Typical family, help us welcome Christian Sanon.
Yes, welcome.
I'm inserting applause there.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, thank you both for having me. I'm so excited to be here, so appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure, man.
So let me tell you just a little bit about Christian before we dive into this conversation here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's welcome our guest, Christian Sanon. Christian is a BCBA and the founder and CEO of Lookup Therapy, part of a broader Lookup ecosystem dedicated to transforming pediatric therapy, education, and community impact. Driven by his personal journey alongside his autistic sister, Christian leads a multidisciplinary team offering ABA therapy, occupational and speech therapy, mental health counseling, and educational services. Woo, that's a mouthful, right? All under one collaborative model. Okay. Through Lookup Therapy and initiatives like Lookup Academy and Beyond the Valley Foundation, he's committed to creating accessible, culturally responsive care and empowering families and communities to thrive. Let's welcome Christian.
Yes, welcome.
Let's talk about this, Christian. So we're going to talk about a little bit about families today. So we started off checking in with our family. So we have to ask, Christian, how are you and your family doing in South Florida? I hear it's hurricane season.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You already know it's raining every single day at 2 p.m. until about 6. And I have 2 toddlers, so I have a 2-year-old, soon to be 4-year-old. T-ball's canceled every day. He's frustrated, so it's a lot.
Oh, man.
Bless his heart.
Yeah, we can't be canceling T-ball.
Exactly.
So it's a lot. And I have another on the way. So ask me how I'm surviving. It's only God.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats. Congrats.
Awesome. I love it. So we definitely have to talk about this when it comes to families, your area of expertise. So when a child has high support needs, it doesn't just affect them. It shifts the entire family dynamic. So siblings often feel unseen. Parents can battle fatigue. And the family as a whole carries a weight that many don't talk about. Today, Christian, we want to have this conversation with you as a BCBA and as an author, but also as a brother. Let's explore how disability impacts the whole family and what we can do about it. Research shows that siblings of children with disabilities are at an increased risk of anxiety, depression, and feeling isolated. What have you seen in your work around this?
Yeah, well, first for myself, I think the biggest thing is living it day to day was very intense and was a lot just because you're trying to balance yourself as you're aging as a child and also your sister or your sibling trying to nurture them and help them grow and mature and live a quote unquote normal life. So balancing that responsibility is super, it is tough. And seeing it with the children that I work with now, their siblings, because we have, believe it or not, 4 sets of twins. And they all have siblings, and it's a lot. I can see like the wear and tear on the older sibling, especially of trying to balance their own life and then also helping out. They want to make sure they're part of that entire system and ecosystem and help that child out.
So you said 4 sets of twins?
Yeah, 4 sets of twins.
Wow. And both twins are on the spectrum?
Yeah. Yep. Both twins are on the spectrum.
Okay. And all 4 sets?
Wow.
And all 4 sets. Yep. So we see all the siblings through my practice.
Oh, that's incredible.
Wow.
Now, you said you are a sibling or your sibling has a disability. I didn't catch, I don't know if it was in the intro. Are you older or younger than that sibling? Like, what's the birth order? Tell us a little bit about your nuclear family. We talked about your family at home, but the family that you were raised in.
Sure. Yeah, it's I had a very unique background. I'll say that. So, my father is a pastor, so he did church planting for Florida Baptist Convention for some time. And then, my parents are both from Haiti. I'm the oldest of 3. So, my sister's in the middle, my youngest brother, and the dynamic was interesting, right? So you're talking about not only being a PK, but also balancing the disability and just life. It was kind of a lot. We moved a lot, so I had to deal with a lot of challenges, but I think it all kind of like developed me to be who I am now. So I see it all as blessings.
Very, very interesting. Father is also pastor. So when you said PK, I kind of perked up because I know the lifestyle and sometimes the expectations, either spoken or unspoken, of a pastor's families. And having a family member with a disability probably added to that list of expectations and whether they were expressed or not expressed. Did you ever feel like, maybe this is a PK and a sibling of a person with a disability question, but did you ever feel like, growing up, especially being the oldest, parents being immigrants from Haiti, did you ever feel like there were expectations that either your family or your church family or the community had of you, especially as being a PK, but then also as the older sibling to someone with a disability, expressed expectations of what you should do for her, or even stuff that you felt that maybe hadn't been expressed, but you kind of felt like that was your responsibility?
Yeah, for sure. I think you hit it right there. Not only just in my household, but also in the church community and the culture of, Haitians. The firstborn son wears a lot of the weight of the family, where the family goes in the next, generation to come. So those pressures were there, on all angles. It's funny. I was talking to my brother earlier this morning. I talk to him every morning, and I was discussing how I had no choice but to live life with purpose. So I didn't really find moments of enjoyment for even things that I did enjoy doing. So growing up, I played basketball. I loved it, but the purpose was to get a scholarship or to be able to go pro. It wasn't so much that I just did it for fun,
Yeah. Wow.
So you talk about already having the pressure of being a PK, but then there's a different pressure that comes with having a sibling who has a disability. So you're already carrying this weight on your shoulders and you're doing everything with purpose. What have you learned from that you can help other parents and families implement so that they can maintain a balance and not make the family feel like we revolve around one person or your needs are less important than the person with higher support needs?
Great question. I think the biggest thing is systems, right? Every family functions on a system, and it's creating that system that supports each person's needs, right? So the same way that the child that is high need needs attention, needs love, opportunity of enjoyment, putting aside 20 minutes, a week at minimum to be able to spend that one-on-one time is very valuable. One thing I always say is I never had the opportunity for my father and my parents to go to my games. If they did, that would have been great, right? That little boost or being able to be part of what I'm part of, that makes a difference. It makes an impact.
So what signs should a family look for that a sibling might be feeling forgotten or overwhelmed?
Great. I'd say anxiety is the biggest thing. The fear of missing out, FOMO, right? We know a lot about that.
We do.
Also, the mood swings. I think that's a real thing when a child is very happy and bubbly walks through the door one day and then upset. Also the mannerisms in the sense of being in public with that child or sibling with disabilities. Oftentimes I remember seeing my sister being laughed at or looked at in church because people didn't understand, having to and like hold her hand through doors because she couldn't really see that well. And the reaction of the community wasn't well responded. So I was angry a lot. I had a lot of anger built up. So those emotions are a real thing that you want to kind of pay attention to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Those emotions are real.
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about the anxiety piece? Like, are there behaviors that, because, our podcast is aimed at trying to help, our community. And a lot of times in minority communities, we don't have these conversations. Or I remember I wrote years ago something about pastors and why they suffer in silence in their families. And one of the things I talked about is that we don't know the symptoms. So a lot of times there could be depression, there could be anxiety, there could be different things going on, but we don't really know what the symptoms are, what that looks like. How can we differentiate that between just a nervous moment? So could you say a little bit more about anxiety, how that sort of manifests, especially in children or siblings that have someone who has a disability? Like what do you see? What's common behavior that's associated with anxiety? Because we don't often know what to look for because we don't talk about it. So yeah, what have you seen? What should we look for?
Yeah, a lot of times it starts with isolation or the unwillingness to do something outside of their comfort zone. That's where kind of what I've noticed. So, for example, if it's going outside and playing, a lot of times what you'll notice is the child just wants to stick around their sibling or be around the caregiver as a form of like protection. They typically don't have too many friends, very small circle. They make sure that whoever's close to them is comfortable being in their home and around their sibling. Also, depression, like you mentioned prior, it looks different for children. It could be just playing video games all day, not wanting to go outside and play basketball or run around or partake in any kind of extracurricular activities. So I would definitely start with isolation and try to figure out how you can push them outside of their comfort zone as well.
That's good, because a lot of those behaviors sometimes are looked at as, you're being lazy, especially like the video games and not want to go outside, you're being lazy, or sometimes it can turn into you're being disobedient or, just a lot of other language. And so that's really helpful for people to know that can actually be signs of anxiety or depression. So yeah, thank you for that. I was interested for myself to know what that looks like, growing up as a PK, not with someone with a disability, but myself having one. And just not knowing the things that we should look out for. So yeah, your work. That answer is really good. So thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. And also I'd like to add to like the fear of making a mistake. So one thing I've noticed is they're always apologizing. So apologizing if they accidentally spill the milk, it's like a big manifestation where it's, they get upset or they might be afraid to get screamed at because of the fact that they're so used to being the person who solves and fixes everything. So that's also part of the whole anxiety thing too.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Listeners, that gives you something to think about. I know that's something that I never thought about. So yeah, especially because I didn't grow up in the world of being the sibling of someone with a disability. So I'm sure that's helpful for those who are listening.
Yeah, that perfectionism. I've heard that before. I've heard it as it applies to Black women, and how Black women often, their anxiety is often exhibited in anger, frustration, or overcompensating. Those overachievers, they need a hug, but they get a degree. So that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that the sibling or family members who are feeling anxious and overwhelmed can do the same.
Yeah. And oftentimes
That's
it could either
absolutely
be
not
the
good.
perfection or the trying to adapt or kind of like provide that comfort in that bubble, or it's a completely isolation. Like I don't want to partake in any assistance or helping. I'm living my own life, and I got to do what's best for me. So that selfishness does come as well, and I'll say that it comes in waves. A lot of times too, I've been in moments where I felt like it was a burden, and I'm just like, listen, I got to close my eyes and do my thing. At the same time, though, you still have that pulls you back into the family. Like I need to make sure I look out for my sister or my brother.
Yeah. But we also have to make sure we are taking care of the family as a whole. And you mentioned your sister having trouble with eyesight and you having to guide her into church and members not always having the best response to seeing that. I recently shared at a conference that Dr. Hardwick and I spoke at that I was actually asked to leave the church because of my autistic son. So my question to you is, we are a podcast that is not just building a podcast, but we're building a community. And what we want ultimately, our ultimate goal of doing this is so that we can have a community that understands how to deal with people with different abilities, whether they're in church or outside of church. That no person walks in with a disability walks into a church and they say, we can't accommodate you, go somewhere else. But they get even if it's just a nugget from us, they get a nugget on how they can better accommodate someone with a disability. So my question is, are there things that the church community can do that can support the family as a whole? And let me make this two-part, because I also know that sometimes people say, well, I don't know what to do with the person who has a disability. I get it. And if I'm honest, if I could share my heart for a minute, I'd rather you say that to me than I leave my loved one with you and you don't know what's going on and you put both of you in danger. So in that case, there's still opportunity to love on other people in the family, the brother, the sister, the mom, the dad, the grandma. We deal with intergenerational household in Black American families. I don't know how it is for Haitian cultures, but I'm going to assume grandmama may live with, mom or dad and be a couple of generations in the household. But how can we, as a church community, how can churches better support the entire family?
Good question.
That's a great question. And that goes deep. I feel like it's very complex and a whole, and I'm going to try to simplify it as best as possible. But I think it really starts with awareness, right? That starts with everything. If you're unaware, get aware. There's no excuse for in a world full of information. I hate hearing people say that I didn't know, and they don't seek for the answers. I think that as church leaders, that is a responsibility as well, is to inform people of this demographic that's coming in that need assistance. Also, training is key. Training the same way like you have people that are directing the traffic in the parking lots. They're getting trained on how to do that. Why can't the welcomers be trained to at least position that child or that family in a space where they can be comfortable and still receive the word? And small groups, I think small groups is something that I'm getting used to because it wasn't a thing when I was going to church as a kid. Small groups wasn't existing. It was Sunday school, it was church, and night service. That's all you got.
Right.
Yeah.
So now with this culture of creating community, I think it's big if they start doing small communities within their churches because these parents and families, they need it.
Yeah. I'm glad you said small groups. I actually, and we'll get to your book, but in my book, Disability in Church, which came out in 2021, I think, I talk about that, about small groups being part of what can be supportive to the families. But my idea was don't just start groups that don't serve real needs, right? So, yes, I know we need the word. I know we need prayer, those all things. But what I encourage people to do is because you talked about small groups are so much a part of church culture now, is to take that model and create groups that meet real needs that families with disabilities have, whether it's respite, whether it's providing meals, whether it's, whatever it is, you can survey the families and find out what they need. And those small groups can actually simply just serve those practical needs. They don't, they can do all the other spiritual stuff, but, there's a need that's there. And the way that you, especially in a large church, the way that you can meet those needs of those families and keep them connected and keep them feeling in touch, because they're not always going to be there every Sunday because of, challenges with disability. But to have a small group that's looking out for them, that's meeting practical needs, someone from the small group might be available to sit in on an IEP meeting with them or to, help them navigate insurance, conversations, or to, make phone calls for them one day, or, something as simple as that. But I like the idea that you said of small groups. That's something that I have been pushing for a long time for churches to do, but to shift it from just throwing scriptures at these families to doing real practical things that they need to have done. Have a small group come over and clean the house.
They do it for the elderly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, there's a lot of things that we do and we should, for our elderly patients, who, most of them aged into disability. Most of the time when there's a hospitalization, there's just small groups and church members that go visit. But it's very rare that you take those same principles and you apply them to families with disabilities. So yeah, you're right. I think it's an easy thing to do. Most churches are already doing it on some level. Just consider those families impacted by disabilities and how they need those same services and that same support. So yeah, I'm with you 100% on that.
Definitely. Sure. A lot of churches have like a respite night where, you can bring your child or your loved one and you get like 2 hours, 4 hours. I think the most I've personally heard is like 6-hour break. And I've heard caregivers and parents sleeping in their car the whole time or just running to the grocery store, getting coffee, like basic, simple things that are hard to do on the day to day. But here's the thing. Most of the churches only offer that once a month, once a quarter, once a year. It's not something that they get regularly. So most people are caregivers 24/7. And I tell people all the time, because you mentioned 4 sets of twins. I had twins. That was my very first pregnancy. And I can't tell you how many people come up to me talking about, oh, my kids are like twins. I had them 14 months apart. I said, there's nothing like twins but twins. Okay. Let's be clear.
Tell them, Doc.
Let's be clear. Okay. Okay. 2 at the same time. So I say that. Listen, it was my first pregnancy. I didn't know any better. So I was like, hey, I guess God thinks I can handle this. So let's roll with it. And we're rolling into 9 years. Everybody's still alive and well. So I guess I'm doing okay.
Hey, you're doing an awesome job, man. They still breathing.
For real.
Hey, I take it. 100%.
Mother of the year.
But I also know that as a caregiver, that's 24/7. There's nothing like being a caregiver but a caregiver, right? Oh, I just got a puppy. It's not the same. It's not the same. Oh, I have an aunt whose cousin's brother's sister has dementia, and it's not the same. I say all that to say, for the people, yes, there is respite, but there's also everyday tired. There's everyday burnout. I know that with your work, with your academy, with your work with your behavior therapy company, you have had to implement strategies because the parents affect the children. Are there strategies that some of our listeners can take away, even if they don't need them personally, they can give to people in their community, but strategies to help them combat burnout and fatigue, which is very real?
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's tough. And as a parent of 2, you're going to be burnt out. You're going to be fatigued at times. But I think the biggest thing is, when it goes back, and I hate to be so analytical with it, but systems, right? You have to be okay receiving help and looking for help. And you have to be okay stepping into a community that's willing to help you. With my mother and my sister right now, my mom's older, my sister's 35 now, and she's still taking care of her day to day. It took us about 2 years just to find the right respite so that my mom could at least get 25 hours out of the week to herself. But those 25 hours are so meaningful because that's where she is able to go to a women's night or to run to the grocery store, like you said, or even just sleep in if she needs to. Because although the child might have the diagnosis young, they still become adults and need that same system or support.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those systems. So systems are important. I know it sounds very clinical and very official, but those systems are important at home, is what you're saying.
Yeah. You need your time to be able to go for a walk by yourself. It's important. That fresh air, that time where you can sit and just read a book, read scripture, whatever it is that it rejuvenates you, you need to do it. Like it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. You said something there that I want us to kind of dialogue a little bit more about, because I know that it may be a stereotype, but I think there's some truth to it. I've written about reasons why, but you said you have to be okay with asking for help and receiving help. And I've written about this in the past, as far as like our community, particularly in the Black church, having that challenge. And I'm talking about broadly as a community, having that challenge of seeking out services and, getting the help that's sometimes available to us as a community, but we don't do it. And there's a long history that I've written about that I don't want to talk about. There's reasons why people in the Black community have been resistant to help. But I'm wondering, if we could just talk a little bit more about the importance of that. As someone who, I was diagnosed with what used to be Asperger's when I was 36. That was a long time ago because I'm much older now. But, so I don't have that high support need. My wife does help me with certain things because a lot of my challenges are social. And I've also had friends that help me. But then also being one of the things that really helped me to understand the need for help was when I was diagnosed with cancer in 2020. And then when it came back in 2021, and just knowing that I need help because that cancer has brought about some physical disabilities I didn't have before. My wife needs help. But to be honest with you, it was a shift in mindset because of the way that we were raised, because of the culture that we came up in. So, and I know some of that is a stereotype but can we talk a little bit about the importance of that and maybe even, our community's understanding and how do we approach asking for help? Because that was the hardest thing for me is I didn't know how to ask because we were raised to just be self-sufficient. Even if it was within just our nuclear family, it didn't go outside the family. Everything that we supposedly needed, we could get within family or maybe a little bit of extended family. So how do we talk about that for people like me who that's a struggle, right? It's easy to say you need help, but how do we approach helping people know that it's okay to ask? What are maybe some tips either one of you have on asking, but helping our communities know that that's okay. And it's to be expected. Like you shouldn't be responsible for doing it all by yourself.
I agree. For myself, I'll say it's the fearlessness. I don't fear getting the no. I'm okay getting no because I know eventually you'll give me a yes, or I know that there's a yes out there. And especially if we're talking more so on like the spiritual aspect and, being believers, we have to remember that Jesus did have disciples and the individuals that helped him spread the word still betrayed him. So I can't get into my feelings or my bag if I know the person who just helped me eventually betrays me. I have to accept it as part of the mission or the journey,
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about that. Yeah.
I know he went deep on that one.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I wasn't expecting the whole sermon, but I appreciate it. Now we got to raise
the PK is showing. It's coming out.
It's deep out here.
I like that though, like just the fearlessness of asking, because there's a level to which you have to be without fear when it comes to expressing your needs. I said one time, and I said this to my congregation when I was still pastoring, that part of the reason I was so open about everything that I was going through and still am going through with cancer is that at some point your need for prayer is going to exceed your need for privacy. And when that threshold hits, when I really need prayer and support and I need people, as I say, to pray informed prayers, like I need you to know exactly what to pray about, not just generic. I need you to know exactly how to help me, not just, whatever you do is fine. No, I need. And so I even in that sermon gave them my congregation, I gave them 6 specific things that I needed them to do. So yeah, I think I never thought about it in terms of fearlessness. So I'm glad you said that, is to be without fear, which I also think means to be without shame, right? Because I think that's a lot of why people don't ask for help is because we're embarrassed. We're ashamed that we do need this, or we don't want people to know exactly how high the support needs are for our loved one with disabilities, because there's still a lot of shame and stigma in our culture about disability. And so we sometimes keep that to ourselves. So yeah, thank you for that, being fearless, which I'll add to that also, being unafraid of being ashamed. Yeah, I think that's good.
True.
Thank you.
And I always think of it in the sense of like, if it's my job to bring my family or my generation past the next threshold, I got to be able to get that knowledge and that information. So that's my responsibility. If that's my responsibility, I can't be afraid to ask because I don't have it around me. I don't have it in my community,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, also responsibility. I like that. You sound like a firstborn.
That pressure, man.
Yeah. I could hear it in everything you say. Like, this is a firstborn child. Like you got the systems, you got the responsibility, you got the fearlessness. I'm like, yeah, that's a firstborn. Yeah. I appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit about your book. You're an author, you're a father, you're a husband, you're a business owner. but you had to take time out and write a book. What is the name of the book? What is this book about? Where can we get it? But first, tell us about it. What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah. Sorry. So about 10 years ago, I always had this dream or this need to do something for my sister. I didn't know what it was, right? Originally, I wanted to become a physician, right? And that's part of being Haitian and firstborn, so that comes with it. So I wanted to have like a clinic named after her or something. And God had different plans. So the book came to mind, and I was like, hold on, wait, I'm going to dedicate a book about relationships of siblings with individuals with disabilities because they have to see that we strengthen one another. It's not just that one person building off of the other person. It's like together as one team. So that being said, I started writing, I started doing some of the sketches, but it wasn't until about a year and a half ago, my wife put pressure on me and she said, you got to get it done. She's like, this year is the year you have to do it.
Right.
And so I was able to do it, and it really just highlights how our relationship is and how I balance her and how she helps me to become, superhero in a sense for each other.
Wow. Yeah. So where can we find the book? Where should we send? Of course, we're going to put a link in the show notes, but where can people find the book?
Yeah, so right now it's on Amazon. So if you search More Than a Sibling, My Sister's Melody, you'll find it there. Then also on my website, www.lookuptherapy.com, you'll see it there too.
Okay, awesome. I definitely got to pick that up, and we'll, as I said, make sure it's in the show notes and on social media because we definitely want people to pick that up. And, shout out to your wife for finally making you
do it, man.
Do it. Like, thank God for wives who see the vision and say it's time, right? So,
amen.
Shout out to her too, because if she hadn't pushed you, we might not have gotten this great book, or we might not have gotten it in this timing. We will definitely make sure that everybody knows where they can get that work. And I'll have to pick up a copy for myself. Eventually, we'll have to meet, brother, so you can sign it for me. I don't know when or where, but we'll find a way to. I might have to come down to South Florida when it's not hurricane season.
Come hang out on the beach.
Yeah. So as we kind of get ready to wrap up here, we talked a little bit about your journey of being a PK, and we mentioned faith. I can't be a pastor and a disability scholar and theologian and not ask this. I would be remiss if I didn't ask like the role that faith plays in building resilient families and facing these challenges, and even the role that faith might play in creating some of these great systems that you're talking about. Because a lot of our listeners are people of faith. They may not be able to attend church regularly like they want to, but they do lean a lot on their faith when it comes to living this life and walking this life with a loved one with a disability. So for you personally, like what role did faith play, and then and from a broader perspective, what role do you think faith should play for those who are also walking this journey?
Yeah, I'll say for myself, faith is everything. My belief in God and understanding who He is and who I am in Him aligns me directly with what He wants me to do in this world. I really have started to dedicate myself more into the scripture because I got tired of reading just devotional books. It's great that I'm getting it third party, but I need to start hearing and seeing and reading the word for what it is so that it can be used in me the way it needs to be. And then it also builds capacity, right? Being able to mature yourself in the word and the struggles of this world is really to help others that are around you. So for the families that are going through all these tough moments, I definitely say have faith, stick to scripture, stick to praying daily, because that's the only way that you're going to be fed and be able to continue doing what you're doing. And God will give you the answers and your time will come. I know it.
Yeah, that's good. Gotta keep, as you say, keep praying. There's a scripture that I love that says, I think it's in Romans, and Paul's talking about Abraham. He says, even though he didn't have a reason to hope, he kept hoping. And that's like one of my favorite scriptures, because it's like, he said, Abraham, with all the evidence, with all of the challenges that he was going through, with all of the circumstances there, if you look at it on paper, there's no reason to hope, but he kept hoping anyway. And I'm like, that's faith. That's hope, right? Everything around me says there's no reason to believe that this is going to work, but I'm going to believe it anyway.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your take on that. Dr. Lee, anything you want to share or ask as we prepare to wrap up?
Well, as we wrap up, I definitely have to ask this. We may have some listeners who are a sibling or a family member that has felt a bit invisible. Can you just give them a word of encouragement or a word of coping or adapting that can just help them hang in there and know that they are just as valuable as their sibling or loved one?
Oh,
That's a great one. I guess I'd have to revert back to myself as a child to be able to think about what I would have told myself, is that your moment will come, and every moment that you're experiencing now will be used for the betterment of someone else and yourself. Something I always used to tell myself during those seasons was that it's better to experience the hardships now than in your older age. So endure them, learn from it, and then put it into practice once it comes time to do it.
That is
That's
awesome.
good. Yeah.
That is awesome. So disability doesn't happen in isolation. It shapes entire families. While high support needs requires attention, we can't afford to overlook siblings or burn out caregivers.
Mhm.
Christian offers insight, hope, and practical steps for families to stay connected, supported, and seen, because everyone in the family matters. Thank you, Christian, so much for your insights, for your wisdom. I'm sure the Hardly Typical family is eating this up for the feast of information you've given. We also want to encourage people to go to Facebook and Instagram, where we will put the link for your book. Let's sell it out. Let's make sure he goes out of stock on his book. Thank you so much, Christian, for your time and sharing your story.
Yep, that's our goal, is to make sure that our community gets the information. So listen, Hardly Typical family, we thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, Christian. We thank you for all the great information that you shared. And we look forward to having a conversation with you in the future. And because I don't know that I'm going to talk to you before the new baby comes, but we're praying for a successful delivery and blessings on you and your family as you prepare to invite and to have the new little one join your family. And so Hardly Typical family, as always, let us know what you think in the comments. You can find us on any one of our socials, on Facebook, on Instagram, Substack. Remember to like and share, but also hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next episode. Thanks for joining us.